The moment Willow Matthews stepped through the doorway of Hartwell Hardware, the scent of sawdust and metal hit her nostrils, and she realized she was completely out of her element. In her tailored Armani suit and Laubautin heels, she stuck out like a diamond in a box of nails. She had never set foot in a hardware store before. That's what her team of contractors was for, but today was different. The emergency plumbing disaster at her mountain retreat couldn't wait for professional help, not when she had 12 executives arriving for a leadership retreat in less than 4 hours. "Can I help you find something?" The voice came from behind her, warm and deep. Willow turned to find a man in his mid-30s with warm brown eyes and a 5 o'clock shadow that suggested he'd been working since dawn. His faded blue t-shirt had the store's logo on it, and despite his friendly smile, she noticed the tired lines around his eyes. "Yes, actually, I need." She hesitated, realizing she didn't know the proper terminology. "Something to fix a pipe that's spraying water all over my guest bathroom." The man nodded. "Sounds like you might have a burst pipe. Do you know what kind of pipes you have? PVC, copper?" Willow blinked. "I have absolutely no idea." "It's a fairly new construction, if that helps." "Dad," a small voice called out, and a little boy around 7 years old came bounding down the aisle, clutching a toy airplane. "Can we get this, please?" The man, not a store employee, as she'd assumed, gave an apologetic smile. "Sorry, buddy, not today." He turned back to Willow. "Excuse my son, I'm just another customer, but I've fixed enough pipes in my day to help point you in the right direction." "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you worked here." Willow felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment. "No worries." He extended his hand. "I'm Victor James. This is my son, Ethan." "Willow Matthews," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, his palm calloused from what she guessed was years of manual labor. "Hi," Ethan said, looking up at her with curious eyes. "Your shoes are really pointy." Victor winced. "Ethan Manners," Willow laughed, genuinely amused. "They are indeed very pointy, and completely impractical for hardware stores, as I'm now discovering." "Let me help you find what you need," Victor offered. "I've got some time before I need to be at my next job." "Are you a plumber?" she asked hopefully. "Handyman," he corrected. "Jack of all trades, master of none, but I know my way around plumbing. What's the situation at your place?" As Willow described the fountain of water, currently destroying her imported Italian marble bathroom, Victor listened attentively, occasionally asking questions about water pressure and pipe location. He guided her through the store, placing various items in her basket: pipe sealant, a wrench, some copper fittings, and several other things she couldn't identify. "Dad's really good at fixing stuff," Ethan announced proudly as he trailed behind them. He fixed Mrs. Wilson's sink and her leaky roof and her garage door. "Is that right?" Willow smiled at the boy's obvious admiration for his father. Victor shrugged modestly. "It's how we keep the lights on, right, buddy?" Ethan nodded solemnly, and something about the exchange made Willow wonder about their situation. Victor's clothes were clean but well worn, and the way he had gently told his son they couldn't afford the toy airplane spoke volumes. At the checkout, Willow pulled out her platinum card to pay for the supplies. "Thank you so much for your help, Victor. I'm not sure what I would have done otherwise." "No problem," he replied. "Though I have to say, with that kind of water pressure issue, you might need more than just supplies." Willow bit her lip. The executives would be arriving soon, and she couldn't afford to have a bathroom out of commission. Making a split-second decision that felt right, she asked, "Would you consider coming to take a look? I'd pay you, of course." Victor hesitated, glancing at his son. "I appreciate the offer, but I've got Ethan with me today. His school's out for teacher development, and my sister, who usually watches him, had to work." "He's welcome to come too," Willow offered. "My place is just up on Hillcrest. It's a bit of an emergency, and I'd be incredibly grateful." After a moment's consideration, Victor nodded. "All right, we can follow you there." 20 minutes later, Willow led them into her sprawling mountain home, trying to see it through their eyes. The soaring ceilings, the wall of windows overlooking the valley, the minimalist but obviously expensive furnishings, it was a far cry from what she imagined was Victor's reality. "Whoa," Ethan breathed, eyes wide as he took in the view. "Do you live in a castle?" Willow laughed. "Not quite, but it is a bit much for just one person." Victor seemed less impressed with the luxury and more focused on the task at hand. "Where's this plumbing emergency?" She led them to the guest bathroom, where water was indeed spraying from beneath the vanity sink, pooling on the marble floor. Victor immediately got to work, asking Ethan to hold his flashlight as he examined the pipes. "It's just a loose fitting," he announced after a few minutes. "Easy fix. The previous work wasn't done properly. Whoever installed this cut corners." As Victor worked, Willow found herself watching him, the focused expression on his face, the sure movements of his hands, the patient way he explained to Ethan what he was doing. There was something compelling about his quiet competence. "All set," he said finally, emerging from under the sink. "Give it a try." Willow turned the faucet on, and to her relief, there was no more leaking. "You're a lifesaver." "Just a loose coupling," Victor said with a shrug. "No big deal." "It is to me," Willow insisted, reaching for her purse. "What do I owe you?" Victor named a figure that seemed absurdly low to Willow. She immediately doubled it, handing him the cash despite his protests. "Please," she said. "You saved me from a disaster with my clients. It's worth every penny." As they were preparing to leave, Willow had another impulsive idea. "Actually, I have a lot of things around the house that need fixing. Would you be interested in more work? I'm constantly having to chase down contractors who never show up when they say they will." Victor considered this, running a hand through his dark hair. "I could definitely use the work." "What kinds of projects?" "The deck needs refinishing. There's a problem with the irrigation system, and I've been wanting to convert the old garden shed into a proper studio." She trailed off, realizing she was rattling off an extensive list, "But we can discuss it another time." "You probably need to get home." "Actually," Victor said, checking his watch, "my afternoon job just canceled. I could start on something small today if you'd like." And so began an arrangement that would change both their lives. Victor started coming regularly to Willow's home, tackling her ever-growing list of projects. Ethan often accompanied him after school, doing homework at Willow's kitchen island while his father worked. Willow, who typically worked from home when not traveling for her tech company, found herself looking forward to their arrivals. She learned that Victor had been raising Ethan alone since his wife left them when Ethan was just a baby. He'd given up his dreams of becoming an architect to take more immediate paying work to support his son. "It's not what I planned," he told her one evening as they shared an impromptu dinner after he finished installing new light fixtures in her home office. "But Ethan's worth it. Every sacrifice, every long day, I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." Willow found herself opening up too, telling Victor about growing up wealthy but lonely, about building her software company from the ground up despite everyone expecting her to fail, about the emptiness of success without anyone to share it with. "People think money solves everything," she confided, "but it just creates different problems. Everyone wants something from you. It's hard to know who your real friends are." "Must be nice to have those kinds of problems," Victor replied with a small smile, but there was no bitterness in his tone. "I know how it sounds," Willow said, embarrassed. "Poor little rich girl. But the truth is, I'd trade some of this," she gestured around at her beautiful home, "for what you have with Ethan, that kind of love." One rainy afternoon, 2 months into their working arrangement, Willow came home from a business trip to find Victor in her kitchen teaching Ethan how to make spaghetti sauce. "Hope you don't mind," Victor said, looking slightly embarrassed. "We were working on the bathroom tiles and it got late." Ethan was hungry. "Not at all," Willow replied, touched by the domestic scene before her. The kitchen, usually pristine and unused, was alive with the smell of garlic and tomatoes. "It smells amazing. Dad makes the best spaghetti," Ethan informed her solemnly. "It's his specialty." "Is that right?" Willow hung her coat and kicked off her heels. "Well, I'm starving after my flight. Mind if I join you?" That dinner marked a turning point. Willow began to schedule her work around Victor's visits. She found excuses to be home when they were there, looking for projects that needed doing, even when there were none. And Victor, she noticed, seemed to be taking his time with the work, stretching out jobs that should have taken days into weeks. One Saturday, Willow suggested they all take a break and go hiking. "There's a beautiful trail just behind the property. Nothing too strenuous, but the views are incredible." Victor hesitated, and she could see him mentally calculating the lost wages from a day not working. "I insist," she said quickly. "Consider it paid time off, employee benefit." The day was perfect crisp autumn air, leaves turning gold and crimson, the mountains etched against a clear blue sky. Ethan ran ahead on the trail, discovering rocks and sticks and all manner of treasures that he proudly showed to Willow. "He likes you," Victor said quietly as they watched Ethan examining a particularly interesting pine cone. "He doesn't warm up to people easily." "The feeling's mutual," Willow replied. "He's a wonderful child. You're doing an amazing job with him, Victor." Victor's expression softened as he watched his son. "I try. It's not always easy. There are times when I worry I'm not enough, that he's missing out because it's just me." "Trust me," Willow said. "That boy has everything he needs in you." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a current of understanding, of mutual admiration, perhaps something more. But Victor looked away first, calling to Ethan to stay in sight. That night, after Ethan had fallen asleep on Willow's couch watching a movie, Victor carried him to the car. Willow followed them out, standing in the cool night air as Victor carefully buckled his sleeping son into the back seat. "Thank you for today," Victor said, his voice low in the darkness. "It meant a lot to both of us." "To me too," Willow replied, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "More than you know." For a moment she thought he might kiss her. She wanted him to. Instead, he stepped back, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Good night, Willow." As autumn deepened into winter, Willow found herself increasingly drawn into Victor and Ethan's world. She attended Ethan's school science fair, where his volcano project, built with Victor's help, won first prize. She joined them for pizza and arcade games on Ethan's birthday. She even helped Victor shop for Christmas presents, delighting in finding the perfect gifts for a little boy who rarely asked for anything. And through it all, the attraction between her and Victor grew unspoken but undeniable. She caught him looking at her when he thought she wouldn't notice, his eyes warm with an emotion she was afraid to name. She found herself making excuses to be near him, to accidentally brush her hand against his, to see his rare but dazzling smile. But Victor maintained a careful distance, professional despite their growing friendship. Willow understood why the imbalance in their situations, his pride, his focus on Ethan, but it didn't stop her heart from wanting what it wanted. The turning point came just before Christmas. A brutal snowstorm had knocked out power across the region. Willow's home, with its generator and excellent insulation, was warm and well lit, but she worried about Victor and Ethan in their small rental house in town. After trying Victor's cell phone repeatedly with no answer, Willow made an impulsive decision. Bundling up in her warmest clothes, she carefully navigated her four-wheel drive SUV down the mountain and into town, where the streets were eerily dark and silent under a blanket of snow. Victor's neighborhood was completely without power. She found their house a modest ranch-style home with a small, neatly kept yard by the glow of her headlights. Knocking on the door, she waited anxiously until Victor appeared, looking surprised and wary. "Willow, what are you doing here?" "I was worried," she said simply. "The power's out everywhere and it's freezing. I have heat, electricity, plenty of room. Come stay with me until it's restored." Victor's jaw tightened. "We're fine. I've got a wood stove, plenty of blankets. Dad." Ethan appeared behind him, wrapped in several layers and looking cold despite them. "Is that Miss Willow?" Willow could see Victor's resolve wavering as he looked at his son. "Please, Victor," she said softly. "Not for you, for Ethan. That did it." Reluctantly, Victor agreed, and soon they were packing overnight bags and following Willow's SUV back up the mountain to her warm, bright home. That night, after Ethan was tucked into the guest bedroom, Victor and Willow sat before the fire in her living room, glasses of wine in hand. "Thank you," Victor said finally, breaking a comfortable silence. "For thinking of us, always," Willow replied honestly. Then, gathering her courage, she added, "Victor, I need to say something." He looked at her, firelight dancing across his features. "I'm listening. I care about you. About both of you, and I hope that you might feel something for me too." Her heart hammered in her chest. "But every time we get close, you pull away." Victor looked down at his hands. "Willow, you live in a different world than we do. Look at this place. Look at your life." What could I possibly offer someone like you? Someone like me. She set down her wine glass. And what am I like exactly? Successful, wealthy, beautiful, you could have anyone. I don't want anyone, Willow said firmly. I want you, the man who treats his son with such love and respect. The man who works harder than anyone I've ever met. The man who makes me laugh, who listens when I talk, who sees me not my bank account or my company but me. Victor's expression was unreadable. And what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that I'll never be able to give you the life you're accustomed to, that I come with responsibilities with a child. First of all, Willow said, Ethan is not a burden, he's wonderful, and any woman would be lucky to have him in her life. Second, you think I care about money. About who pays for what? I've been surrounded by people who only care about wealth my entire life. What I can't find what's rare and precious is honesty, integrity, genuine connection. What we have. Victor was silent for a long moment, the fire crackling between them. Finally, he said, I've been afraid to hope, to let myself believe that someone like you could want someone like me. Then believe this, Willow said, moving closer to him on the couch. I've never felt this way about anyone before. Never. When he finally kissed her, it was everything she had imagined, tender at first, then deepening with months of pent-up longing. His hands cupped her face as if she were something infinitely precious, and she melted into him, feeling for the first time in her life that she was exactly where she belonged. The power outage lasted 3 days. By the time it was restored, something fundamental had shifted between them. Victor and Ethan returned to their home, but the careful distance Victor had maintained was gone. They began dating properly dinner at simple restaurants, where Victor insisted on paying, despite Willow's protests. Movie nights at her place with Ethan falling asleep between them. Long conversations about their hopes and dreams and fears. Willow learned that beneath Victor's practical exterior lay the soul of an artist. He showed her sketches he'd done, architectural drawings, house plans, designs for furniture he hoped to build someday. She was stunned by his talent. You should be doing this professionally, she told him, flipping through his portfolio with growing amazement. Victor, these are extraordinary, he shrugged, embarrassed by her praise. Maybe someday, when Ethan's older, when college is paid for. A plan began forming in Willow's mind, but she said nothing yet, wanting to be sure of her feelings of their relationship before making any grand gestures. Spring arrived, and with it, a school break for Ethan. Willow suggested a week at her beach house on the coast. Just the 3 of us. No work, no phones, just relaxation. Those 7 days were among the happiest of Willow's life. They built sandcastles with Ethan, collected shells along the shore, grilled fresh seafood on the deck as the sun set over the ocean. At night, after Ethan was asleep, Victor and Willow would sit on the beach, talking for hours or simply being together in contented silence. On their last night, with a full moon silvering the waves, Victor took her hand. I never thought I'd have this again, he said quietly. After Sarah left us, I convinced myself that it was just going to be Ethan and me against the world. I didn't trust anyone to come into our lives and not hurt us again. I would never hurt either of you, Willow promised. You know that, right? I do know that now. He turned to face her fully. I love you, Willow. I think I've loved you since that first day in the hardware store when you tried to navigate plumbing supplies in those ridiculous shoes. Willow laughed through sudden tears. I love you too, both of you, so much. When they returned from the beach, Willow put her plan into action. She owned a commercial building downtown that had been sitting vacant. Quietly, she had it renovated into a workshop and studio space. When it was ready, she took Victor there, nervous about his reaction. What is this? He asked, looking around at the state-of-the-art equipment, the drafting tables, the wood and metal workshops. It's yours, Willow said. Or it can be if you want it. A place to design, to build, to create. You can take commissions, design furniture, work on architectural plans, whatever you want. Victor's expression clouded. Willow, I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not a gift, she clarified quickly. It's an investment in you, in your talent. We can structure it however you want, a loan, a partnership, whatever makes you comfortable. But I believe in you, Victor. I've seen what you can do. The world should see it too. He was quiet for a long time, walking around the space, running his hands over the tools, looking out the large windows that flooded the studio with natural light. "I've dreamed of something like this," he finally admitted. "But I never thought it would be possible, not for years." "Life's too short to put dreams on hold," Willow said, coming to stand beside him. "Especially when you don't have to." In the end, they structured it as a business partnership. Victor would design and build custom furniture and architectural elements, while Willow would handle the business side. He insisted on a contract that would allow him to buy out her share over time, and she agreed, understanding his need for independence. The studio, which they named Horizon Designs, was an immediate success. Victor's work, combining beauty with functionality, attracted attention from designers and collectors. Within months, he had a waiting list of commissions and had hired 2 assistants to help with the workload. Watching him flourish, seeing the pride in his eyes when a challenging project came together, the joy he found in creating beautiful things was one of Willow's greatest pleasures. Equally rewarding was the change in Ethan, who spent hours at the studio after school, learning from his father, developing his own creative talents. 1 year after their first meeting at Hartwell Hardware, Victor took Willow back there on the pretense of needing supplies for a project. As they wandered the aisles, reminiscing about that first encounter, Victor suddenly stopped. "You know," he said, "a wise person once told me that life's too short to put dreams on hold." "Sounds like someone very smart," Willow teased. "She is." Victor smiled, then to her shock, dropped to one knee right there in the plumbing supplies aisle. "Willow Matthews, this past year has been the best of my life. You've brought joy and love to Ethan and me in ways I never thought possible. You've believed in me, supported me, challenged me to be better. I love you more than I ever thought I could love anyone again." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring not ostentatiously large or flashy, but exquisitely crafted in a design she recognized as Victor's own work. "You made this," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. He nodded. "From the first piece of furniture I sold at the studio, I saved a small section of maple, knowing exactly what I wanted to do with it." He took a deep breath. "Willow, will you marry me? Will you make our family complete?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, with all my heart." As Victor slid the ring onto her finger, applause broke out. Ethan, who had been hiding in the next aisle with the store manager who was in on the plan, came running over. "Did she say yes, Dad? Is she going to be my stepmom for real?" "I said yes," Willow confirmed, kneeling down to hug him. "If that's okay with you." "It's more than okay," Ethan said, hugging her fiercely. "It's what I wished for when I blew out my birthday candles." 6 months later, they were married in a simple ceremony in the backyard of their new home, a house they had chosen together. One that was neither too grand nor too modest, but just right for their family. Victor had designed much of the interior himself, creating spaces that reflected all 3 of their personalities and needs. At the reception, as they danced under strings of twinkling lights, Victor held Willow close. "Happy?" he asked. "Incredibly," she replied. "Though I keep thinking about how differently things might have turned out if I hadn't needed that plumbing emergency fixed. I'm starting to believe it was meant to be," Victor said. "That somehow, someway, we would have found each other." "The millionaire and the handyman," Willow mused. "Not exactly a conventional love story." "The best ones never are," Victor replied, leaning down to kiss his wife as their son danced around them in circles, their family complete at last. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Emma, who had her mother's determination and her father's creative spirit. The studio expanded into a thriving business, with Victor taking on select projects that interested him while training a new generation of craftspeople. Willow continued to run her tech company, but scaled back her hours, finding greater fulfillment in family time than in corporate success. On the 5th anniversary of their meeting, Victor presented Willow with a special gift, a handcrafted jewelry box made from the wood of the original hardware store counter, which had been replaced during renovations. "To remind us," he said, "that sometimes the most valuable things in life are found in the most unexpected places." Willow, holding Emma while watching Ethan show off his latest drawing, couldn't have agreed more. The journey from that first meeting a flustered woman in impractical shoes and a tired handyman with a curious son to this moment of complete happiness had been unexpected, challenging at times, but ultimately perfect in its imperfection. And she wouldn't have changed a single step along the way.